relationships, they're great, right?
Yeah.
The connection, all those shared experiences, the support. But there's this thing.
Mhm.
How do you keep being, well, you, when you're part of a couple? And that is exactly what we are diving into today.
Okay.
Whether you're in a relationship, thinking about one, or just fascinated by how they work.
Yeah.
This deep dive's for you. We're going to unpack this lecture all about keeping your individuality while you're in a relationship, while you're still building a really strong partnership.
It sounds interesting. Like a tough balance to strike.
It is. It is. It's like think of it as a dance. You're moving together.
Uh-huh.
But each person, you've got your own steps.
Yeah, yeah.
Your own style.
Absolutely.
Now, here's a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Couples who work on their individuality, they actually say they have more satisfying relationships.
Really?
It's true. Embracing who you are, it's not selfish. It's actually like a secret ingredient to a happy partnership.
I can see that. When you feel like you're truly seen in a relationship
Yeah.
and appreciated for who you are. So this lecture, it defines individuality as those qualities, those characteristics that make you, well, you. It's holding on to those things that make you special even when you're growing and evolving with someone else.
So you're not trying to become the same person.
Right. And the lecture gets into why this is so important. And first up is personal growth.
Okay.
They use the example of Jessica, who loves to paint,
Uh-huh.
and Mark, who's like a total rock climbing enthusiast.
Okay.
Instead of like trying to force each other into their hobbies, they're like, go for it. Mark goes to Jessica's art shows. She cheers him on at these climbing competitions. And their relationship, it actually grows stronger because of it.
Because they have that space to be themselves.
Exactly.
And they come back to the relationship with all these new experiences to share.
Yeah.
And then, on the flip side, the lecture talks about this thing, this codependency trap.
Oh, interesting.
It's when someone relies way too much on the other person for their happiness.
Like their whole world revolves around the other person.
Almost like they can't function without the other person. And it usually comes from fear of being alone,
Right.
lack of self-worth. They're looking outside for validation instead of finding it within themselves.
Yeah, and sometimes you see this in movies and stuff.
It's true.
Where it's romanticized, but
Right.
in reality, that's not healthy.
No, real love, it's about supporting each other, of course.
Yeah.
But it also needs a good dose of independence.
Yeah, for sure.
And to show how losing yourself can affect a relationship. They talk about Sam and Alex. They started out as this adventurous couple, always trying new things.
Fun.
But then they made the relationship their everything.
Okay.
They stopped doing their own things, and things just got,
Yeah, it happens.
stagnant.
You lose that spark. Like, they're both trying to lead, but no one's really following.
Yeah. And so how do you not fall into that? The lecture has some really practical strategies for keeping your individuality in a relationship.
Okay, so we're getting to the good stuff, like how to actually make this work.
Exactly. First up might sound simple, but it's huge. Setting boundaries. We're talking healthy boundaries. Physical ones, emotional ones, even social.
Yeah.
It's like creating space for both of you.
Right, like you're respecting each other's space.
Right, so you can both, thrive.
Yeah, I think people get confused about boundaries.
Oh, totally.
They think it's like pushing someone away.
Right.
It's not that.
No.
It's more like making sure everyone has room to breathe.
And get this, almost half of couples struggle with this.
Really?
That's what the lecture says.
Wow, so it's really common.
It's more common than you think.
Yeah.
Which means talking about it is super important.
Yeah.
And being willing to, understand what the other person needs.
Absolutely. Okay, what else? What's next?
All right. This one may sound a little weird, but it's about having separate interests.
No, okay.
Like the lecture talks about Ella, who's a yoga fanatic.
Yeah.
And then Ben, who's like a total foodie.
All right. Opposites attract.
Right. They each have their own thing, and it actually makes their relationship more exciting.
Interesting.
They got more to talk about, more to share.
That makes sense. It keeps things fresh.
Right. Speaking of sharing, the lecture talks about how important communication is.
Right.
Might seem obvious,
Yeah.
but it's about talking openly about your needs, what you want, even the stuff you might be scared to bring up.
Yeah. That's where it gets hard.
It does.
But that's when it matters the most.
Because when you feel safe enough to be yourself,
Right.
that makes the connection stronger. You understand each other better.
It builds trust.
Right. And the lecture talks about this fear.
Oh.
That being dishonest could actually create distance.
Yeah. A lot of people worry about that.
But it says the opposite. That actually builds trust.
Counterintuitive, but I get it.
They might feel awkward at first.
For sure.
But honesty is like the foundation.
It's the real deal.
Yeah, to a real connection.
Absolutely. Sometimes we think something's going to cause a fight.
Yeah.
And it ends up bringing us closer. So true.
And speaking of growth, the lecture reminds us that things change.
That's life.
People change. Relationships change.
For sure.
And learning to roll with those changes, both on your own and together, that's key for happiness in the long run.
Adapting, it's huge. You can't be rigid in a relationship. You got to be able to bend.
Right. Or you'll break.
Exactly.
And that leads us to the big balancing act. How to be together, but also independent.
Right. Finding that sweet spot.
The lecture brings up Michael and Sarah.
Okay.
They have this system.
Oh, I love a good system.
Date nights once a week to keep that connection strong. And then they have a hobby night once a week where they do their own things.
Smart. That's a good model.
Right. It's about finding that balance where you both feel connected and supported, but also free.
I like it. So where does self-awareness fit into all this?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
The lecture says self-awareness is like the basis for this whole thing. Like you can't tell someone what you need if you don't even know yourself, right?
Totally.
So without that self-awareness, you can't set boundaries, find separate interests, or even communicate that well.
Right. It all falls apart.
The lecture uses Samantha and Jake as an example.
Okay.
They have these regular check-ins.
Oh, interesting.
Where they talk about their goals, how they're feeling, anything that's on their mind.
Like a relationship temperature check, making sure everyone's happy.
Exactly.
And feeling good.
It helps them figure out if they're both feeling fulfilled and respected.
Regular communication is key.
It is. And on top of that, the lecture talks about personal growth. Anything that, makes you feel alive.
Yeah.
Helps you grow as a person.
Right.
Could be school, travel, some kind of creative thing.
Like anything that feeds your soul.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that supporting each other's growth, it can make your bond even stronger.
Really?
Yeah. Might seem counterintuitive, but it brings in new ideas.
Yeah.
New experiences.
It's like that souvenir thing again.
It is. It's like coming back from an adventure with all these stories.
I love that analogy.
But the lecture does say that there are challenges.
Of course, it's not always easy.
To keeping your individuality in a relationship.
Yeah. What are some of those challenges? It can be tough. Like the lecture mentions societal expectations.
Oh, yeah, like those traditional roles.
Uh-huh.
Like the whole breadwinner stay-at-home thing.
Yeah, those expectations can make it hard to just be yourself.
They can. It takes real effort to break away from that.
It does, to define your own role.
And then there's being scared of rejection.
Oh.
The lecture gives this example of Julia. She loves hiking, but she didn't want to tell her partner.
Why?
Because he's more of an indoor person. And she was worried he'd judge her.
That's so relatable. Everyone wants to feel accepted,
right,
loved for who they are.
Exactly.
So sometimes we hold back.
We do, but it turns out Julia's partner was totally open to trying new things.
That's great.
But that fear almost stopped her from sharing something she loved.
Yeah, it's a good reminder to be open with each other.
It is. Create that safe space.
Vulnerability is key.
It is. And, the lecture also talks about dealing with conflict.
Ah, that's a big one.
It's going to happen in any relationship.
It will.
But the lecture actually says it can be a good thing.
Wait, really?
Yeah, when you approach it the right way.
Like not in a destructive way.
Right. It can actually help you grow, help you understand each other better.
Okay, so it's about respecting each other's viewpoints.
Even when you don't agree.
Yeah, that's the tough part.
It is, but it's not about avoiding conflict.
Right.
It's about learning to work through it.
In a way that respects both people.
Exactly. Now, the lecture ends on a more upbeat note.
Okay, good.
With some really cool examples of couples who make this whole individuality thing work.
Yeah, like who?
They mention the Obamas, both incredibly successful.
Oh, yeah.
But you could tell they really respect each other's strengths.
And their passions.
Yeah.
They seem like a great example.
They do. It shows that you can be your own person and in a strong partnership.
They complement each other.
And they talk about Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera.
The artists?
Both amazing artists, but they had their own unique styles.
Right.
And they supported each other's creativity.
That's beautiful. Like they inspired each other.
They did. It shows that a relationship can be this source of creativity.
And support.
Without having to give up who you are.
Yeah, you don't have to blend into one person.
And then it brings up this idea of friendship in romantic relationships.
Ooh, I like that. It's so important. It's about seeing your partner not just as, your
significant other.
Yeah, but also as your friend.
Someone you admire.
Yeah, someone you respect.
Just for who they are.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something to think about. How can you encourage your partner to grow? while also nurturing your connection. What's one small thing you can do this week to prioritize your own individuality?
Good question.
Keep thinking about this, and remember, the best relationships are the ones where you can both be yourselves.
Well said.
That's it for this deep dive. See you next time.